What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Dude Hines Show. And on today's episode, I have a special guest, Blake Jude, joining me. How you doing today, Blake?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a good couple of days. The NFL draft is getting pretty close, so a little under 3 weeks remaining, and I'm super excited.
Yeah, the NFL draft. I mean, like you said, it's crazy how close we're getting to it. And on today's episode, we have lots of topics. Wrestlemania was this past weekend. The Bengals finally have a Ring of Honor after finally years and years of people wanting them to have a Ring of Honor. Some interesting news of the college football, and we'll do a round one NFL mock draft. So, like I said, WrestleMania was this past weekend. Honestly, I was not able to watch many matches of WrestleMania, but were there any matches to you that kind of stood out and that you were really intrigued by?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main headliner, I guess, for all the WrestleMania matches was the triple threat match between Roman Reigns, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. Very, very fun match, and I guess it's already okay to go ahead and spoil it. Was pretty surprised to see Roman actually get the pin and win the match, pinning both Edge and Daniel Bryan at the same time, which is very impressive. They have really built up Roman Reigns to be a beast now, and I thought it was a great match. I actually expected Daniel Bryan to be the winner of the match, of course, and obviously that didn't work out. So I'm interested to see who is going to be the next contender against the WWE champion.
Yeah, to me, I honestly did not going to watch that match. There was only a couple of matches I was able to watch, but with Reigns, with him winning, I in the way I understood it, but in the way I didn't, because WrestleMania was yesterday, and 10 years ago, yesterday was the day that Edge, retired. 10 years later, he's in the main event of WrestleMania, trying to win the WWE Championship against Roman Reigns. Also with Daniel Bryan, who I think this is probably his last big storyline. I'd be surprised if he's wrestling full time anymore after this. In a way, I understand Reigns because he's the biggest guy in wrestling right now. Nobody's even close. At the same time, Edge or Daniel Bryan made quite a bit of sense. The underdog type of story for both those guys. But the thing to me with Edge and Daniel Bryan losing to Roman Reigns now, I don't know who WWE will let Reigns lose to. Those are the two top guys that made the most sense. And with Reigns winning, kind of surprisingly, nobody really thought he would win. I have no idea who WWE will pick to eventually defeat Roman Reigns.
Yeah, that's the question we're all kind of asking ourselves now, since all the people who are built up the highest are now kind of falling off the cliff. Drew McIntyre, of course, lost the title to Bobby Lashley in the match the previous day. So McIntyre might be one of those guys that can contend. Of course, Randy Orton did defeat The Fiend in that match, which was very interesting to see The Fiend finally get pinned, which has been very, very rare to see. So maybe Orton now sits at one of those top spots to maybe try to contend with Roman Reigns for the future. Big E Langston, or just Big E now, he was pinned and lost to Apollo Crews with the help of Dabo Kato, I believe, to lose his Intercontinental title. So maybe he is now looking for the biggest gold of all, the WWE title. That's certainly another possibility. But honestly, overall, it's hard to really top Edge and Daniel Bryan, two of the biggest wrestlers of the company for the last decade. So a very, very impressive win by Roman. I thought the triple threat match was going to be a cop-out, so he wouldn't end up being pinned, but would lose the title still. I figured either Edge or Daniel Bryan would pin the other one. But for him to be able to pin both, that's huge. And now it's going to be really interesting to see who's the next contender.
You mentioned The Fiend. I was able to catch the very end of that. That made absolutely zero sense. I'm pretty sure everybody watching was pretty much a WTF moment. They knew what was going on. It's like you feel like Alexa Bliss. I don't know if she turned on The Fiend, but I didn't really know what to describe it. To me, I just don't get. To me, that was probably the biggest shocking win of the whole WrestleMania weekend. I thought for sure The Fiend was going to win. He's freaking supposedly burnt, gone for 4 months, comes back and loses to an RKO. I don't understand you. The Fiend, I barely watch WWE anymore, but The Fiend and Alexa Bliss to me is the most intriguing characters right now. But to have them lose so stupidly and not making any sense to me is very risky, and I feel like could potentially I'm not going to say the end of the Fiend, but if this keeps up, this is going to be a problem for another Bray Wyatt character.
Yeah, it kind of felt like they were just trying to find an excuse to have the Fiend get pinned without it actually being legit, in a way, because obviously it was off a distraction, I guess, somewhat that allowed Orton to win. The Fiend was set to win up until that last moment. Alexa Bliss turning on him is a move that I'm not a huge fan of personally, and it kind of shocked me. It really did shock me. For the WrestleMania factor, I mean, it was crazy because no one ever expected that to actually happen, but it's really hard to see where this feud goes now because it's not really possible for Alexa Bliss to wrestle the Fiend, and now that Alexa Bliss no longer has her interest in the Fiend, where does that take her character for the future? I mean, she can only rival against other women, and that's going to be I don't know, pretty odd. I would rather see her kind of follow behind the Fiend possibly for the future rather than it being kind of the other way around, but maybe now we try to see the Fiend maybe play as more of a face role and try to figure out how what's going on with Alexa Bliss and maybe try to help her.
For me, the only kind of scenario that would kind of make sense, and it still does not make up for the crappy situation last night at WrestleMania, is if Bo Dallas has not been on TV for probably about a year and a half now. He's real life brothers with Bray Wyatt. There was lots of rumors about what if Bo Dallas would join the Fiend. I think that kind of makes sense the more you think about it because Alexa Bliss can kind of be side with Bo Dallas like she was with the Fiend for probably about over the past half year. You would have Bo Dallas and the Fiend feud, but after that, I don't know what you would do. But to me, that's the only logical thing right now that would kind of make sense because there's no way the Fiend and Randy Orton are going to continue feuding after that.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I kind of put it into the problems because it really was mainly, I think that was definitely the climax of the feud between those two. The weirdest part to me is why would Alexa Bliss help Randy Orton win after their bad beef that they have had personally between the two for the longest time? It doesn't make a lot of sense. To me, it kind of felt like they were trying to move into Alexa Bliss wanting to be with Orton instead. Which I don't like. I think Randy Orton's much better off as a loner, being like him with himself and no one else. That's kind of where he's been booked for the majority of his career outside of, being with Triple H and everyone like that. But when he's actually by himself as the Legend Killer, I think it's the most exciting character he's ever had. So I wouldn't like to see him have like a manager or someone behind him following him the entire time. It just wouldn't work in my opinion. So I do agree with you. I think, maybe looking at possibly having someone like Bo Dallas or maybe another character from NXT or someone like that, possibly being a new creepy guy who's just trying to follow around and harass the Fiend now. It would be pretty interesting to see how that kind of turns out. But regardless, I hope what turns out of this is the Fiend continuing to show his dominance because his character is very, very exciting, and I don't want to see him lose now.
Yeah, honestly, I've never been a fan of Bray Wyatt, but when the Fiend, all that started happening, that's a very intriguing character because you kind of have like three personas, kind of like how Mick Foley did years ago. I think it's just really interesting, what the Fiend, his character in general, but be really interesting to see, what the Fiend, what WWE has in store for him. Moving over to the NFL now, in the Bengals, after years and years, finally announced they're having a Ring of Honor. What were your thoughts on the Bengals, finally announcing that we're going to have a Ring of Honor?
I'm very happy about it. I mean, this is a fantastic move. It's going to be good for several reasons. For one, you're able to finally give respect to the legends that have been on your team. Ken Anderson, Ken Riley, have not made the Hall of Fame, but they are going to be Bengals Ring of Honor members because of how special they were for this team. Willie Anderson, another guy who's trying to help his chances in the Hall of Fame. He now really helps those chances now being added to the Bengals Ring of Honor possibly here soon. I really like this idea. They've already announced the first two members, Paul Brown, of course, the owner, the creator of the Bengals, as well as Anthony Munoz, the Hall of Fame the only Hall of Famer the Bengals have at offensive tackle, are going to be the first 2 inducted members, and then there's going to be 2 more that's going to be voted on upon fans, the season ticket fans. So I'm assuming that's probably going to end up being Ken Anderson and Ken Riley, who are pretty much seen as the two second and third best players in the franchise history. So I'm very, very happy to see this happen. I'm excited to see more players inducted. I want to see some guys like, Chad Johnson, AJ Green possibly in the future, Andrew Whitworth, maybe some guys like that get in, some more recent guys, just to be able to have a lot more notoriety than what I believe they should be getting. I think that it finally gives us a chance to learn a lot more about Bengals history for the most part as well. Maybe some guys that we hadn't heard of in the past, we get to know a little bit more and get to respect. And it's going to really help. I think a lot of players want to come here and be special with the team. It's going to continue to help attract people to Paul Brown Stadium, want to be legends for the Bengals, as well as also maybe helping some legends reconnect with the Bengals. Maybe some guys like TJ Hushmanzada, who's been connected with the Bengals for quite a while. That allows other guys to kind of play those games and come back and be a part of everything now. So I really like this move. It's going to help all around. There's not really a bad thing about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's long overdue. I mean, Bengal fans and, the Bengals in general, people have complained about, why is Ken Riley not in the Hall of Fame? Why is Ken Anderson in the Hall of Fame? Both those guys are definitely deserving of the Hall of Fame. But if you as your franchise don't acknowledge your legends, why should the NFL acknowledge him? And that's kind of my thing. You mentioned Ken Riley and Ken Anderson. You did mention Anthony Munoz and Paul Brown are the first 2 guys going into the Ring of Honor. You did mention, like I said, Riley and Anderson. Those are the only 2 people, in my opinion, that people should even be considering being the Bengals Ring of Honor. Ken Riley, I believe he's 5th all-time in interceptions. If he played for the Steelers, he'd be considered the best corner of all time. If Ken Riley played for if Ken Anderson played for the Steelers, he'd be considered one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Some people would say, that might be biased because you don't like the Steelers. Look at Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw was not better than Ken Anderson throughout the years, and Bradshaw is considered, one of the NFL legends and all that BS. Rod Woodson was amazing, but Ken Riley's had the exact same career. I mean, to me, Ken Riley and Ken Anderson, those are the only 2 guys that should be in the Bengals Ring of Honor, along with Munoz and Paul Brown.
Yeah, Ken Riley and Ken Anderson are both one Super Bowl away from pretty much being first ballot Hall of Famers. And it's crazy now, since they haven't won a Super Bowl, they're not even a part of being a ballot, which is nuts to think, because these guys' careers during not only the regular season, but also in the playoffs, were out of this world fantastic. I mean, Ken Riley is statistically one of the best corners ever, and he is the only cornerback in the top 10 of interceptions that is not going to be in the Hall of Fame right now, which is unreal to imagine, since he's 5. He's ahead of 5 other guys behind him that are Hall of Famers. So I just think that, now giving them a Ring of Honor maybe gives them a better conversation of getting into the Hall of Fame. I think this really does increase their chances, especially after Ken Riley's passing as of recent. So maybe now he gets into the Ring of Honor. Maybe the Hall of Fame gets traction of his name and remembers how great of a cornerback he was. Maybe that really, really helps his case out being a Hall of Famer in the future. But unfortunately, it's already too late. He's already passed away. He's never going to celebrate that moment with his family, which is heartbreaking to imagine that someone so good was never going to be respected whenever he was still alive. As for Ken Anderson, he still has time. He's still kicking it, and he was still a great quarterback. And I think that, definitely the best in Bengals franchise history. He made it to a Super Bowl. He is a great quarterback, and I think once he's added to the Bengals Ring of Honor, he might finally get the respect he deserves and be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, hopefully, with the Bengals Ring of Honor, the NFL will also acknowledge, some of the Bengals legends like Anderson, Riley, Willie Anderson, maybe even Chad Johnson. I mean, who knows? So, hopefully, this leads to more Bengals in the Hall of Fame, because, just us having one is just really unacceptable, especially considering, you really look at our, team through the years, we've had some pretty nice players. So, kind of moving on to a quick little topic of college football I thought was kind of interesting. UCF, their spring game, they decided to have their Twitter handles on the back of their jerseys. This was first done by Temple University 3 years ago. What are your thoughts kind of on, would you be for or against Twitter handles being on the back of jerseys in the future of college football?
It's an interesting topic. I think, there is always the upside of possibly getting to know the players better. Someone, if they might not know the player, it's easy to just go on Twitter, look up their Twitter handle, and get to know them more in a personal level. And maybe that creates more fans of certain players and maybe helps build their brand. So on paper, I really like it. At the same time, it is a little tough to see a long Twitter handle and then it pan over to another screen. You not be able to find it for another hour until you have to look back at it again. So it might be a little bit difficult to actually see the Twitter handle, but it's a pretty good idea. I think that if players are wanting to build their own brand, a lot of times players try to market themselves to help their draft stock raise. We've seen in the past, Zion Williamson had a huge, social media following. We see guys like Mikey Williams in high school already have a huge social media following. Maybe that helps some of these other players, college football players, get some more followings and have better chances of possibly raising their stock due to their popularity.
I wouldn't be against it for spring games, but to me, and let's say national championship game, somebody could have the back of their jersey, Hannah Montana fan number 1, or something stupid like that. It's like the play of the year. You're going to look back at the guy in the back of his jersey, like Hannah Montana fan. I think there's a difference. I mean, there's a fine line between social media taking over sports. I'm all for a spring game. But if you're talking about regular season, I understand kind of promoting a brand and everything, but I just don't really get it. I don't think it's necessary. But I mean, you look at some old fans, people who've watched football throughout the years. I mean, I know they'd hate it. Personally, I don't really think it's a good idea. I'm not totally against it, but I'm just not really for it.
I think another issue, if it becomes a regular season thing, is the fact that if a player makes a poor play or something like that, they would be prone to possibly getting harassed on Twitter, and we don't want to see that for any player. We've seen a lot of death threats, especially during the March Madness fiasco with I believe it was Washington of Ohio State. I got a lot of harassments after missing that shot in the final minutes of the game. I wouldn't like to see that at all. That's just not something that needs to happen on social media. And so I do agree with you. I think maybe it being in the regular season might be a bit of overkill. But going for spring games or something like that, getting your name out there and getting maybe a couple extra followers, a couple hundred extra followers is never a bad thing, just to make some new friends possibly and help increase your brand.
Yeah, that is a very, very good point about, harassment on social media because, I mean, there's a fine line between, wanting a team to win and just being disrespectful and stupid about, wishing people would die and stuff like that. You mentioned the Ohio State guy, just things that should absolutely not be happening. And, with Twitter handles being on there, that could also, increase those things. But it'll be really interesting to see what they do. You have enough time to do a quick mock draft? All right. So we would do a round 1 NFL mock draft. Give me just 1 second here. We would do this on PFF. We'll do round 1, like I said, PFF. Do you want to do? Can you see the screen all right? All right. So round 1 mock draft, PFF. We're doing a mock draft simulator. We pick all the picks in the first round. So Blake, who do you want to pick with the first pick? I think you're on mute.
My fault. I gotta get used to that. Sometimes it's a little difficult to get used to. I always think I'm unmuted. My fault. But I think it's pretty obvious with pick 1 and pick 2 who I'm going to lean towards too. Especially for pick 1, we've seen Urban Meyer say it himself. He is leaning towards picking Trevor Lawrence with pick number 1. So I think for sure Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be the pick here if the Jaguars are choosing. Now, I also think for pick 2 with the Jets, it's probably going to be clearly Zach Wilson, especially after trading Sam Darnold. So those are 2 picks I'm very comfortable with locking in right now since, I feel like it's almost a 0% chance to go anywhere else.
Yeah, Lawrence is, obviously number 1. And I've told you before how much I like Zach Wilson. Almost ridiculous how much I like him. I think he would be a fantastic pick there. Number 2 with the New York Jets. So number 3, who are you thinking about for the San Francisco 49ers? In my opinion, I'm kind of thinking Justin Fields. To me, it's between Justin Fields and Trey Lance, but I'm kind of going more towards Justin Fields.
It's a very, very close contention between the two in my eyes. It really just depends on what Kyle Shanahan wants at a quarterback. And I think we can both probably agree. We don't see Mac Jones as being a top 3 talent in this draft class. It's just not something that's realistic in my eyes. I think Mac Jones is purely smokescreen and nothing else. I do agree with you. It gets down to Trey Lance and Justin Fields. I personally have a much higher grade on Justin Fields than I do Trey Lance. I'm very, very big on Justin Fields. I have, him, Zach Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence probably my 3 biggest guys for sure in this draft. I think they're both top 5 talents right now. And so I'm down to pick Justin Fields if you are, because I really like his potential.
So take Justin Fields at 3. I know some people may not like this pick, and I know, Atlanta fans, I got a comment yesterday. They didn't really like the pick. I think Trey Lance to Atlanta, I absolutely love that pick. I mean, Atlanta's been vocal about wanting a future quarterback, for Matt Ryan's future replacement. And Trey Lance, to me, if he played at a higher school, like an Ohio State or Alabama, I think we would have a debate if he would be quarterback number 2 in this draft. He reminds me, I've talked before, at first he reminded me quite a bit of Carson Wentz. When I watch him play, he reminds me quite a bit of Deshaun Watson, and that's kind of the reason why I think Lance is a possibility to San Francisco at 3 as well, is because San Francisco, they were in the Deshaun Watson, sweepstakes before those allegations, with Watson and everything like that. So I'm kind of thinking Trey Lance at 4. Are you kind of thinking the same thing?
Yeah, and I heard this, I believe, from the athletic writer in Atlanta. They really, really are considering the idea of picking a possible backup behind Matt Ryan for quite a while, and then let him, of course, assume the starting position maybe in a year or two. If people don't like this Trey Lance signing, I think you just need to realize that it is a 1 to 2 year development, and you had the potential of getting an extremely talented quarterback in 1 or 2 years. And really I think it can even improve your offense with the guy like Trey Lance, because not only does he have a very talented arm like Matt Ryan does, but he also has extreme athleticism, able to get on the ground and run the ball. Atlanta's just not in a position to win right now. And if they want to draft to win now, that's a huge mistake in my eyes. I think you need to build for the future. And so I really like this Trey Lance pick, because I think he is the future of the Falcons.
Yeah, the Falcons, to me, I think it would be really smart if they take Lance or Fields, whoever they're at 4, and also maybe take a wide receiver around 2, maybe like Elijah Moore. Terrence Marshall slips early 2nd. So number 5, Sewell and Chase and, Pitts are all available at 5. To me, I know this is very, very unpopular. I really, really like Kyle Pitts. I prefer it more in the trade back situation. Pitts is not your typical tight end. I know lots of people say, Penei Sewell is a generational offensive tackle. Okay, that's fine. That could be true. But if you say that, the 100% the same thing should be said about Kyle Pitts being a generational type of tight end. I mean, his wingspan was absolutely insane, but his measurables, they're quite comparable to Calvin Johnson and DK Metcalf. But to me, I wouldn't mind Pitts. Realistically, I know it's not going to happen. Any of the 3 guys, I would be completely fine with. Like, it's pretty much impossible for the Bengals to screw this pick up. But who are you going to take here at number 5 with the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one. Just to start out, I do want to put and show my respect for Kyle Pitts as a prospect. He is an extremely rare prospect. We have never seen anyone like this. With someone with running a 4.4 as a tight end, being as heavy as he is, weighing about 260 pounds, having I believe the longest wingspan ever recorded by a tight end ever. I mean, this dude's an athletic freak. He's literally a mismatch everywhere, no matter where he goes. The only player comp he's ever had really is Darren Waller and Travis Kelce, but he is bigger and faster than both of those players, which is unreal to imagine that someone can be compared to those players, but is more athletic than those guys. I mean, he is a freak of a player and completely can change your franchise if possible. With that being said, I agree with you. And we have heard reports that the Cincinnati Bengals are likely to pick between Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell here at 5. This has been a pick where, even Kyle Pitts included, I am like completely split on. Any of these picks would be A pluses in my grade book. If I was grading these picks, these are all A plus picks. These guys have been back and forth between my number 1 overall prospect in the draft overall, even ahead of Trevor Lawrence at one point. I've had some of these guys above him. Kyle Pitts is currently sitting as my number one guy now after all the pro day testing. He has been my number one prospect overall, over Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase, but they are right behind him. I believe it's like 98, 97, 97 right now for my grading books out of 105, keep in mind. So it has all been super, super close between those guys. They are all fantastic. It really is just down to what you want at this position right now. I think that if you are comfortable taking offensive line and in round two, maybe you can factor out Sewell, maybe look towards Pitts or Chase. There's also that chemistry that they have with Jamar Chase right now. I hate always making these picks because I feel like I've always changed my mind each year. But right now, I really like the prospect of Jamar Chase possibly reuniting with Joe Burrow here in Cincinnati and maybe trying to take an offensive lineman round two.
Yeah, I like Chase here at 5. Like I said, any of the 3, I would be completely fine with. But, I did a mock draft the other day, Bengals summer mock draft. I had Kyle Pitts. It seems like to me, Bengal fans are fixated on Chase and Sewell. It's like, I know both those guys are great, but people really need to acknowledge the little freak that Kyle Pitts is. He's not your typical tight end. I know tight ends are not often drafted in the top 10. The ones who have been drafted in the top 10 recently, top 15, Evan Ingram, TJ Hawkinson, haven't really panned out. But like I said, Pitts is not one of those guys. And speaking of Pitts here, I know this is an extremely unlikely pick, but I really, really like it. What would be your thoughts on Kyle Pitts going to the Dolphins at 6?
This would be the pick I would make, personally. I really like this idea of Kyle Pitts going to the Dolphins here at pick 6. He is a freak prospect, and he can play all around the field. He can play as an outside receiver. He can play with his hands in the dirt at tight end. He can play in the slot. He can play anywhere. So no matter what the Dolphins have made it pretty obvious at this point that they want a pass catcher. They want a guy who they can rely on for the future. And, of course, I think Jamar Chase is that number one guy for them. Of course, the Bengals did take that at pick 5, so now they're looking to find someone else. If you ask me between Kyle Pitts, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Waddle, I think there's a clear gap between Pitts and the rest of those guys. Pitts is a fantastic pass catcher, and he can play anywhere on the field. The Dolphins can definitely use a guy like that. We know the Dolphins can probably run some 12 sets with Mike Gesicki at tight end and Kyle Pitts maybe outside at wide receiver. They can play him anywhere. He's going to be an effective wide receiver, and he's going to be an effective tight end no matter what happens. So I really like the pick of Kyle Pitts to the Dolphins. It's been one of my favorite picks so far in the draft.
Even when the Dolphins were picking at 3, I thought it should have been considered Kyle Pitts going to 3 with the Dolphins, but their trade backs and everything, and now pick 6. And part of the reason I like it, because like you said, they need a guy who can catch the ball. They have Devontae Parker. He's nice, but he's not great. Also, Mike Gesicki's a free agent 1 year from now. That's something to also look into. I think it makes a lot of sense. Kyle Pitts to me, I know I like him more than Jamar Chase. I like him more than any wide receiver. So I think it's a great pick there for the Miami Dolphins. So the Lions, Panthers, pick 7 and 8. So we try to hurry here, with time constraints and everything. Who are you kind of thinking about for the Lions and Panthers at picks 7 and 8?
Yeah. For the Detroit Lions, I'm guessing their top 2 targets, Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase, are gone here at pick 7. So it's a little bit unfortunate for them. I think the biggest deal for the Lions is making sure you get the best talent available right now. And in my eyes, that's offensive lineman Penei Sewell. I think that they can definitely use some help on the offensive line, and it's also going to help their run game tremendously with DeAndre Swift being a developmental running back for their team right now. As for the Panthers, they are also in a position where, Kyle Pitts is likely going to be their number 1 target. He's gone, as well as Penei Sewell, another guy they can really, really use at this point. If you ask me, you do lose Curtis Samuel, so there's always that prospect of maybe trying to find an extra wide receiver to help your team out right now. I really like the idea of Jalen Waddle maybe being added here in Carolina and adding on to Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore in this offense. I think for me right now, it's a little bit too early to be taking any defensive players. As much as I like a guy like Micah Parsons, and I think he can fit really well on this team. They drafted all defensive players last year in the draft. I think they need to look towards adding some more offense here. And the loss of Curtis Samuel hurts. You're going to need to get an extra deep threat, an extra Z wide receiver for your team. And with Jalen Waddle falling here at pick 8, you're going to get Sam Darnold with a really, really good weapon.
The Lions at 7, it's an A+ pick taking Sewell, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Dallas Cowboys end up trading to 7 if Kyle Pitts is still available. Lions do not have a ton of picks in this draft, and with them trading Stafford, obviously they're willing to trade to get more picks because they're in a rebuild mode. But I wouldn't be surprised, if Dallas maybe trades up to 7, only if Pitts is available. Number 8, though, I like that pick a lot with, Jalen Waddle going to the Carolina Panthers. It makes so much sense. With them losing Curtis Samuel to Washington, and I mean, you have Waddle, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, who I think is probably tied for the most underrated receiver with Tyler Boyd in the NFL. But I mean, I think Sam Darnold, with you have Joe Brady, I think that becomes a potential pretty nice offense with the Carolina Panthers. I think that's a really nice pick there. Also, I would not be completely shocked if it's Micah Parsons. I know the off the field issues. If he's had some things which are not being talked about at all for whatever reason. I really do not understand it. But maybe be the Luke Kuechly replacement, because he was the best linebacker for about a decade. They're trying to fill that void at the linebacker position. So picks 9 and 10. To me, I'm kind of thinking. I know the Broncos signed a couple corners in free agency. I'm still not totally against taking a corner here at 9. I'm not against at all taking a corner for the Cowboys at 10 as well. Their secondary last season was absolutely horrific. I'm kind of thinking corner at 9 and 10. What are you thinking about for Denver and Dallas?
My biggest issue with adding a corner at pick 9 is the Broncos added Kyle Fuller and Ronald Darby in free agency, two really good starting caliber corners. And I think that, if you are committing to those guys for the future, maybe it is a little bit tough to add a corner here in the draft right now. I think you can argue a big underrated need for them right now is linebacker, getting an extra linebacker to maybe help out in the backfield. Josie Jewell right now believes you're slotted in as your inside linebacker, so maybe Michael Parsons might be a bit of an interesting pick here. Corners also certainly a possibility. If you were very, very high on J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain here at pick 9, I think it could be a pretty good, okay pick as well. I definitely like it. I definitely think those two are some of the top defensive players in the draft right now. I just don't know if the needs fit really anymore. They had a huge need at corner entering the free agency, but adding to the top 5 corners in free agency maybe knocks that need down a little bit.
Fuller, I believe he was a 1-year deal. He was with I can't. My mind's going blank. The guy and what was that?
He was in Chicago, I believe.
Yeah. He was with Chicago with the Broncos head coach. Fuller was all pro. He was there in Chicago with reuniting with the Broncos coach now. So Parsons would be a really nice, interesting pick there at number 9 with the Broncos. So we'll take him. And I don't know. I saw earlier today on Good Morning Football. Excuse me. They had Matt Jones going number 9, and one, it doesn't make sense because I don't understand that. Drew Lock was supposed to win the MVP last season, but I still don't really understand already giving up on Drew Lock. To me, that I'm not. I know I'm fanboying over Drew Lock right now. I'm not trying to, but I still don't really think he's had a fair share of starts because he was injured some last season. He had lots of targets who were injured as well. But I don't think Matt Jones, him slipping to 9 would be a good fit for the Broncos. I think the defensive side of the ball would be best case scenario for the Denver Broncos. 10 and 11, I kind of think corner for Dallas. Number 11 for the Giants, I'm definitely thinking maybe a wide receiver like Devontae Smith. So who are you thinking about for picks 10 and 11?
Yeah, I agree on both accounts. For the Cowboys at pick 10, I think cornerback is pretty much the obvious move here. Your top 2, you lose your top corner to the Bengals and Chidobe Awuzie. So now you got to find the replacement for that. You still have Trayvon Diggs, the young corner from Alabama. Why not partner with his former teammate, Patrick Surtain III, the cornerback from Alabama? They played together in Alabama apart from each other, and they both performed at a very, very high level. Patrick Surtain right now is my highest graded defensive player in the class, right in front of Micah Parsons by a hair. I think he can be a very good lockdown corner. He tested very, very well. As for the New York Giants, you mentioned already a possible addition at wide receiver. Golden Tate is well on his way out, from, I believe he's already in free agency, so he's no longer with the Giants. You have Kenny Golladay, who you added. You have Sterling Shepard is a pretty good wide receiver, and you have I believe you have Darius Slayton as your other guy. The unfortunate news for the Giants is, you have John Ross as your 4th guy. Outside of that, it's really no one else, and I don't really know how much you can trust John Ross right now. In my eyes, this is the season where you got to give Daniel Jones everyone possible to succeed with. And so I like Devontae Smith here with pick 11, just to add one more receiving threat to maybe help out your offense just a little bit. I believe Sterling Shepard is near the ending of his contract right now, and of course Darius Slayton has still a lot of development to do. If you ever choose to move on from one of those guys, maybe Devontae Smith can slot in as that permanent slot corner or slot wide receiver for your future.
Yeah, you mentioned you can't trust John Ross. I mean, his injuries, throughout the years of the Bengals. Also, keep in mind that contract is only for 1 year. I was really surprised, Ross went there. I kind of thought, the Chiefs make quite a bit of sense. But Devontae Smith to the New York Giants is a absolutely fantastic pick. So we have the Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Chargers. 12, I'm kind of thinking corner, whether it's Caleb Farley, J.C. Horn. I think it's a little bit early. And then 13, to me, you have to get Rashawn Slater as long as he's there. I believe it was 66. No Chargers offensive lineman last season, had a better grade than 66 according to Pro Football Focus. They did sign Corey Linsley. That's probably, in my opinion, probably the most underrated and best signing in free agency. So 12, I'm thinking corner, and 13, I'm thinking Rashawn Slater for the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely a corner goes with either one of these picks. And in my eyes, it's probably going to be J.C. Horn as one of those guys. Unfortunately, with Caleb Farley, the injury to his back, having to have two surgeries, has caused a major medical red flag. And they said it's likely that he drops to one of these, he drops in this draft. And with J.C. Horn having one of the best pro days ever by any cornerback, I think it is the likely pick here for the Eagles at pick 12 in my eyes, to add an extra guy next to Slay, who is an aging cornerback one. And you already mentioned it for the Chargers. If Rashawn Slater is here at pick 13, lock it in immediately. Get him to your place. You need Adam. You already added Corey Linsley and Matt Fowler to your offense. However, you still have a major need at left tackle right now, I believe. You have Brian Bulaga handling the right tackle, I believe, but needing to add an extra tackle on the other side is number one priority, and Rashawn Slater is going to immediately do that day one.
Yeah, with the Chargers, this hopefully, as of right now, it's scheduled for this Friday. Supposed to have Los Angeles Chargers starting running back Austin Eckler on the show. So really looking forward to that. Could be real fun. So that's definitely the biggest interview on the show in quite some time. So 14 and 15. Vikings, the team in the top 20. The Vikings, the team. I literally keep changing positions, what they may do. I've had a mock draft that had them taking Barmore, Aerosol, Elijah Vera Tucker, J.C. Horn. I have no idea what the Vikings are going to do. And that kind of goes for the same thing with the Patriots. I know Matt Jones is there, but personally, I'm not really completely a big fan of Matt Jones going to the Patriots. I know, it would make quite a bit of sense. I'm not totally for it though. 14 and 15 to me are big question marks. What are you thinking here for Minnesota and New England?
For Minnesota, I think a big storyline we need to keep an eye on right now is the possibility of departing from defensive end Daniel Hunter, who is your best defensive end right now on your team, and has been rumored to be a trade candidate for the team. I think when you also look at the other side of the defensive line, it is very, very weak. You need to add an edge rusher in this class, and I think they have their position right now where they can add the best edge rusher in the draft this year. And I've been going back and forth on who it is. Currently, my edge one sits as Jalen Phillips. However, I think the Vikings have the best scheme fit possible for defensive end Kwity Paye for Michigan. A very, very big, brute defensive end who can play alongside Daniel Hunter, but can also be Daniel Hunter's replacement. He is a very, very similar build and is a power rusher, and that's what the Minnesota Vikings have had a history of really, really liking, is those big power rushers. And I really like Kwity Paye for that pick. As for the New England Patriots, this gets a lot tougher because you added Cam Newton, you add a bunch of weapons, especially the tight end room, to your squad, and that really raises the question of whether or not you should take Mac Jones to the pick. I don't think you should, because you already have a guy like Cam Newton. You can wait till next year and move on. I think personally, my favorite pick right now, this might be a bit of a surprise to some people, is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. A very, very versatile player. I really like his fit in the Patriots scheme, being a guy that can play linebacker or, probably slot cornerback, can also play in the safety position. He can play anywhere on the field. And we know the Patriots love those guys who can be versatile and can play anywhere on the field right now. He's a guy that I really like his fit with the team, because he can, there's not really a spot they can't put him and he won't succeed. He can play anywhere at a very, very high level.
Didn't Patrick Chung retire?
Who was it? Sorry.
Patrick Chung, the safety for the Patriots.
Yes. Patrick Chung retired this year, and currently they are slated to have possibly the McCourty twins move on as well. So you lose those guys, with also the possibility of Stephon Gilmore being moved on from. So your secondary loses a lot this year, and so it's going to be probably a good idea to maybe try to add a possible safety in Usu Koromoa.
Last season, they drafted Kyle Duggar from Lenore Ryan. That was quite a surprise pick, and not many people expected it in the second round. Would you be totally? I know this is going to sound kind of stupid because they picked safety so early last season. Would you be for or against taking Von Morig at 15? Because to me, I think he's one of the most underrated players in the draft. I think he's the best player at his position. He's still underrated. I think he'll be a top 20 pick. And, without question, he had the best grades on everything, it seemed like, according to the PFF. Do you think Morig, the Patriots, would kind of make some sense?
I like Merrick a lot, and I respect his game, and I think it is certainly a possibility if you want to add a replacement for Jason McCourty at free safety. At the same time, you also have the guy added last year from Lenore Rhyme, who's also playing free safety right now. Kyle Duggar is his name, and he might be the possible replacement for McCourty, for both the McCourtys as well. So that's something I want to factor in whenever I mention that. Merrick is going to be a great safety the next level. He does have a round one grade for me, and I think he can go as high as 15. This is probably where his ceiling is at. Right now, I personally have a higher grade on Owusu Koromoa, and I also think Koromoa can play possibly that strong safety position, which might be a bigger need at this point.
I did not realize how late it was. Do you have to go or anything?
We can keep going. We can try to finish this up. No worries.
All right, I'm sorry about this. We'll try to hurry. So 16, Arizona. I'm kind of thinking Elijah Vera Tucker. I think it makes sense. They need offensive line for Kyler Murray. It's very versatile. He can play tackle and guard. What are your thoughts on Vera Tucker possibly going to Arizona?
I think it's the right move. You need to add an extra offensive lineman for Kyler Murray, and I think Darius Saul is the best offensive lineman available right now. So I really think he can be a good addition to the squad. They need to add some, possible help in the run game as well. So maybe getting, Darius Saul to be a good run blocker off the edge allows you to maybe go with the running back round 2.
So 17, they have the Raiders. This is a very interesting pick as well. It's very, I don't know, like, I'm kind of thinking of the defense side of the ball. If Darius Saul was here, I think that'd be a pretty good pick. I'm still kind of thinking maybe Trevon Moehrig, maybe a corner, Let's see here. If there's any, Caleb Farley, I believe he's still available. We've not picked him yet. Who are you kind of thinking here for the Raiders at 17?
I think a pretty big underrated need for them right now is on the offensive line. Maybe adding an extra offensive lineman. If Elijah Vera Tucker's on that board, that'd be the pick I would probably like to go with. I definitely think they can use some extra defensive help for sure, but I also think it's a possibility that the corners could probably fall a little bit in this draft. I believe PFF is a little bit lower on Elijah Vera Tucker, but I consider him to be one of the best offensive linemen in this class for sure. You lose several players on your team. Rodney Hudson has been moved on from. You lose Gabe Jackson, your starting right guard, and you also lose your I believe it's your starting left tackle and Trent Brown, which you traded to the New England Patriots. So 3 losses on the offensive line. You got Nick Martin signed. You still need to add 2 extra guys in that squad, a guard and a tackle, and I think Vera Tucker could probably fit in as a guard spot for you.
So there's 18 here with Miami Dolphins, and some of the team needs, tackle, guard, the defensive tackle, and edge. Here, the Dolphins to me is very interesting because I've had a couple of mock drafts at 18 where I've had them take Najee Harris, and I think it might be a little bit too early for a running back. But I like Barmore quite a bit here, and also like Azeez Ojulari, edge rusher from Georgia. He's probably my number 1 edge rusher in this draft class. Who are you thinking here at 18 for Miami?
Yeah, you just said his name. Azeez Ojulari, the edge rusher from Georgia, is my pick here at pick 18. I think that he sits as my edge 2 right now on my board, right behind Jalen Phillips at edge 1. But I think the biggest perk to his game is he fits in perfectly with the Dolphins system as being that outside 3-4 edge rusher for your team. He's a little undersized, that outside linebacker, but whenever he's standing up on the outside, playing that sort of Kyle Van Noy role for your team, possibly, he can be a dominant rusher off the edge. And I really, really like his potential of possibly being able to drop back and play in coverage or be able to rush a passer in blitzing situations.
So 19 Washington picks, and Matt Jones is still available. Are you going to take Matt Jones here at 19?
Yeah, let's stop the fall of Mac Jones and take him here for the Washington football team. You only have Ryan Fitzpatrick as your only starting quarterback right now. That's on the roster. I would say Taylor Heineke's guy that everyone's been kind of interested in, but I think at this point it's pretty obvious that Heineke is not going to be your starter of the future. Let's let Mac Jones go here and develop behind such a smart quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick for the future.
That's a really solid pick there. Number 20 with the Chicago Bears. They could use a wide receiver to have Allen Robinson, but he's only locked up for one more year. I personally like Rashad Bateman quite a bit. I think he could be, when it's a couple years from now, one of the best wide receivers from this draft class. I think he's going to be good wherever he goes. Who are you kind of looking at here for Chicago at 20?
Yeah, I think Chicago's in the position to go and really pick between wide receiver and corner in my eyes here at pick 20. I like Caleb Farley's maybe an underrated player to go here, maybe if you are interested in him. But at the same time, you already mentioned the problems with Allen Robinson and the Bears. He's likely to not be a Bear next season, and you need probably find his replacement. So I do like Rashad Bateman here at pick 20. I think he can be the future wide receiver one for your team, and hopefully give whichever quarterback you have a pretty decent weapon.
Yeah, either one of those picks would make quite a bit of sense there. Farley, him dropping out of the top 20, and with Chicago Bears, losing Fuller, Denver, and free agency. 21 and 22 to me, for the majority, I've kind of had them going either wide receiver or edge rushers. If Bateman was there at 21, if I was the Colts, I definitely would have probably picked him up. So number 21 and 22, who are you kind of thinking here for Indianapolis and Tennessee?
I think for the Colts, you lose Anthony Costanzo this offseason to retirement. So you need to probably look towards adding a left tackle apart from Quentin Nelson. And it's always going to be a pretty easy job whenever Quentin Nelson's sitting beside you there. But regardless, you still want to get a pretty good day one starting offensive tackle. There are a lot of guys I have looked at and like at this position right now, but I've been reading a lot of articles from the Draft Network, and I've scouted it myself. I agree. I think Liam Eichenberg is probably the best fit here for the Colts at 21. The Colts are in a win now position where they want to get the best player available. And actually, take that back. I'm sorry, take that back. You still have Tevin Jenkins here. My fault. I didn't mean to skip that over. I saw what you had. I saw you scroll over Tevin Jenkins at left tackle. He is probably the best tackle available in my eyes right now. And I totally forgot he was even available here at 21. I have him right below Darisaw, very, very close between those two. I think he can possibly argue to be a top 20 pick in this draft. And putting him next to Quentin Nelson is going to be a great, pair right there. So, now that I see Tevin Jenkins, I think he should definitely be the pick here at 21.
Yeah, that's a really nice pick there.
Sorry, go ahead.
What was that?
I was going to say, as the Titans at 22, I think maybe adding a cornerback could be the smarter move here.
So you're thinking Caleb Farley here at 22?
Yeah, I think you lose Adoree Jackson to the New York Giants, your number one corner, your best cornerback, and you also lose I believe Jonathan Joseph, who they cut this offseason. And you really have Christian Fulton as being your only cornerback returning next year to the team. And you probably need to add an extra corner apart from him, who's he's a very, very young corner. So maybe adding a guy like Caleb Farley or Greg Newsome could be the smarter move. I have a much higher grade on Caleb Farley, and if he's healthy at this point, I would definitely take him here.
So 23 is very interesting. It's the Jets pick. It was with Jamal Adams trade that was originally by the Seahawks. Zach Wilson, to me, I think he's going to be good in New York. I think he's going to be really, really nice, but he needs weapons, whether it be a running back or a wide receiver. Rashawn Bateman is gone, so obviously, he's not there. Elijah Moore, Terrence Marshall, to me, I know it might be a little bit early. I like that pick. But I also like Travis Etienne and Najee Harris. So I'm kind of thinking running back or wide receiver. Who are you kind of thinking here at 23 for the New York Jets?
Yeah, you add Will Fuller this offseason. Or not Will Fuller, my fault. You add wow, I'm completely blanking. Will Fuller went to the Dolphins. You have Denzel Mims,
Corey Davis.
Corey Davis was the addition at wide receiver. That's my fault. But yeah, so you have Denzel Mims, Corey Davis, and Jamison Crowder right now as your three starting wide receivers, which I actually think is pretty solid right now. If you ask me, you could probably add another guy if you wanted to possibly replace Corey Davis in the future or Jamison Crowder possibly. But I think I agree with you. I think looking at a running back right now might be the smarter move for the Jets, getting a guy that can finally trust to run the ball. It has been a big conversation on who's the best running back in this class. I have personally been on Team Najee Harris since the beginning. I really like Najee Harris's game, and he's a very, very athletic and strong running back who can, pound onto the ball. And I think for Robert Saleh and a defensive-minded team, it might be a smarter move to have a really good running game and being able to pound the ball on the ground and get those 5-6 yards per game. And I think Najee Harris is very, very good with that, with his fantastic contact balance and strength.
Yeah, Harris to the Jets at 23 is a pretty nice pick, and it's really interesting, like you mentioned. The running backs, how people have their prospect rankings. I've even seen a couple people even have Javonte Williams number 1, which I think is kind of crazy. I mean, I've seen Travis Etienne, number 3. It's just all over the board. So we're going to number 24 with the Steelers. I don't know if this. I know this is probably reach. Personally, I kind of like Creed Humphrey. Because, with Pouncey retiring, you need that interior guy who could be your center. With Creed Humphrey, you can have that. If Matt Jones was here, honestly, I probably would not draft him. But right here, I'm kind of thinking, offensive lineman, really here for the Steelers at 24.
Yeah, in my eyes, if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm going with the best offensive lineman on the board because you need to add some extra offensive line help. You lose Matt Filer, one of your starters. You also lose Alejandro Villanueva, and of course, you lose Pouncey. So you have a need at guard, tackle, and center. It really depends on what you see as the best fit for your team right now. If you ask me, who I like the most here at 24, I would go with Landon Dickerson, the center out of Alabama. A very, very good and powerful center, which is what they have tended to like at their positions right now. However, I think the biggest issue with Dickerson is his injury history, and that is a big problem. But the Steelers have added a lot of depth on their offensive line, and they've always been known for having great depth. They need to get a really good guy to put in that center of that offense right now, and I really think Dickerson can be that guy for the future for them. I believe you're muted.
That's the bad thing. I always forget I'm on mute in here. But, personally, I kind of think, Pouncey, Dickerson or Humphrey at 24. I don't think either one of those picks are bad. I know some people may think those are reaches. Personally, I think either one of those picks are really nice for Pittsburgh. But 25 for Jacksonville. I mean, you're the top player available. Either one of these two guys, Christian Barmore and Trevon Moehrig, either one to me, but I'm kind of thinking Christian Barmore for the Jaguars. Who are you kind of thinking here at 25?
As much as I like Barmore, I kind of lead towards Trevon Moehrig. They have a huge need at safety right now. Neither of their safeties have been very reliable for their team, and they really, really need that help for the secondary. You have C.J. Henderson really locking down one of those corner spots, but their secondary as a whole is very weak, and I think getting a nice, good free safety to play middle field for your team could be a very, very smart move right now. So I like Moehrig here for the Jaguars. You muted again.
Crap. Either one of those picks to me is an A-plus pick. I mean, those are, without question, probably the two best players available, and those are really team needs for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Anytime you get team needs and best player available, that's automatically A-plus. Bryce says here, Najee Harris is the number 1 running back. Blake was saying that as well. We had Najee Harris go to the Jets at 23. So Christian Barmore is still available. I kind of think I like the Browns. I'm not totally against it. I was kind of thinking wide receiver because I personally think they should maybe trade Odell Beckham. They lost Larry Ogunjobi this past season to the Bengals. Christian Barmore, I mean, with Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney's visiting Cleveland today. That would be crazy. Are you seeing Barmore here to 26 to Cleveland?
Yeah, I actually really like Barmer here at that pick. I think that there's a lot of different directions they could go. I also like Jalen Phillips here, possibility at edge rusher, but as you mentioned, Jadeveon Clowney likely to be signed by the Browns. They also have Ty McKinley being another edge rusher, so that need at edge kind of goes away after if you do sign Clowney, like we think they will. Also, possibility in Greg Newsome at corner, possibly being a selection here for the Browns. But I think Barmer's a very, very good pick. You lose Larry Ogunjobi. And you could probably find a guy across from Sheldon Richardson that you can use to play at tackle. So I like Barmore here.
That's A+ there for the Cleveland Browns. But pick 27 for the Baltimore Ravens. To me, he fits their offense so well. I don't see him dropping to the second round because if he's not drafted by the Ravens, I think he goes maybe to the Chiefs. I absolutely love Kadarius Toney 27 to the Ravens. I know Rashawn Bateman was there. Like I would rather prefer Bateman go to Baltimore, but Kadarius Toney just fits Baltimore's offense and schemes so well with the end rounds and everything like that. Screen passes, very similar to Hollywood Brown. Who are you kind of thinking here for the Baltimore Ravens?
In my eyes, you use Matthew Judon and Unique Ngakoue to free agency this year. So your biggest need really is on the edge in my eyes. And I think Jalen Phillips here from Miami would probably be the best pick here for the Ravens to get another edge rusher apart from Calais Campbell. They are a team that has really relied on their edge rushers in the past, and I think that Jalen Phillips is my favorite edge rusher currently available in this class right now. So I think no Judon, no Ngakoue, you're going to lose a lot of sacks, and you're going to have to try to add that back in some way, shape, or form. And I like Phillips as being that guy.
It is a really nice pick there for Baltimore. They're known for the defense. You look at some of the guys they've got from Miami over the years. Ray Lewis and other guys as well. 28 for the New Orleans Saints. To me, I know you have Michael Thomas. He's good and everything. But aside from Michael Thomas, you have Alvin Kamara, who's actually a running back, he catches out of the backfield. I like them staying in state and taking Terrence Marshall, wide receiver from LSU. Who are you thinking here for the New Orleans Saints, 28?
I agree with you. I think they can really pick between their best selections at wide receiver right now. And whether it's Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, or Terrace Marshall, you couldn't really go wrong with it. Marshall does have that familiarity already with New Orleans. Plus, he is a very, very good deep threat, which they do not currently have on their roster right now. So I kind of lean towards Terrace Marshall as well. He is also my favorite wide receiver available. He's my highest ranked right now. He's my wide receiver 5. So I like Terrace Marshall here to add finally a good deep threat for your team apart from Michael Thomas.
So we take Terrence Marshall, 28, to the New Orleans Saints. Next up is the Green Bay Packers. Lots of people think, they should take wide receiver just because, they have Devontae Adams and that's it. But I would not be surprised if they end up taking a corner or a linebacker. Last season they lost Blake Martinez. And, with them trading up with I think the Chargers or whoever it was, with them trading up, I really thought, they were going to get Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen could have been that replacement for Blake Martinez, linebacker position. Obviously, they did not do that. They shut everybody by taking Jordan Love. Has Micah Parsons been picked yet?
Yeah, he went pick 9.
Oh. So, but to me, you look at linebackers, there's Nick Bolton and Zaven Collins from Tulsa. Those are the only 2 linebackers I would kind of consider here at 29. The corners. There's some pretty, Greg Newsome, Elijah Moore, the wide receiver from Ole Miss. I'm kind of thinking, I know it's 3 positions, but wide receiver, linebacker, or corner. And as long as you get the best guy out of one of those 3 positions, I think that's a pretty good pick here by Green Bay. So who are you looking here for Green Bay?
Yeah, I think at linebacker it's pretty tough because Nick Bolton and Zaven Collins are 2 good prospects that are kind of teetering between day 2, day 1 guys. We don't really know where they're at right now. Jamin Davis from Kentucky has been a very big recent riser as well at linebacker. But I tend to agree with you. I think you want to go with the best player available between those 3 positions. And in my eyes, the best player available out of those guys is Greg Newsome, cornerback from Northwestern. You need to add an extra cornerback apart from Jair Alexander. You re-signed Kevin King to a 1-year deal, but he is really not going to be your cornerback 2 right now. I think Greg Newsome can be that guy for your team for the distant future.
That's a really nice pick there for Green Bay at 29. So next up at 30 is the Buffalo Bills. As it says here, they can use edge and corner. I also think they can maybe use offensive line. Josh Allen, when he scrambles, gets sacked a decent amount of bits. To me, I want to be. I think a pretty nice pick here. I don't know if it's a reach. You have Dylan Redunce from North Dakota State. Maybe an edge rusher like Gregory Russo. He's continuing to drop, chasing away from Penn State. Who you kind of also Asante Samuel Jr., the corner from Florida State. He's starting to rise up draft boards. Who are you kind of thinking here for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, he just said his name. I like Asante Samuel Jr. here a lot for the Buffalo Bills. I think his best scheme fit for his team, like for his best possible scenario, is with the Buffalo Bills. Being apart from a guy like Tre'Davious White, such a great cornerback, I think he can really, really work as that cornerback too for your team right now. And I think the most important thing is he can enter himself as a day one starter for the team. And the Bills are kind of at the point right now where they need a day one starter. Just to kind of add, maybe to add to this roster just a little bit, because they already have so much talent all around the board. They have so much depth already. You just need to add that day one talent, and I think Asante Samuel could be that guy for your team.
So pick 31 with the Young Susie Kansas City. Just me, I really like Wyatt Davis, the guard from Ohio State. I also really like Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver from Florida. It also says they can use tackle. Who are you kind of thinking here for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, I think tackle might be the biggest need for them right now. You lose Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher, your two starting tackles. You have Lucas Niang right now slotted to be one of your left tackles probably for the team. I think adding a right tackle might be the smartest decision for you at the moment. And currently Dylan Redden sits as my favorite tackle so far in this class right now. I want to see him go round one because I really like his potential at tackle. So I'll put him here for the Chiefs.
Yeah, Redunce, he absolutely helped his draft stock so much throughout the Senior Bowl practice week and then the game itself. Was well respected by the coaches and players and everything. So it's a really nice pick there for Kansas City. Being a young, small school guy, it's really interesting. You look at North Dakota State, very small school, such a small school, and they have 2 first-round picks and one draft. That's just really crazy considering how small of a school North Dakota State is. And they're having more first-round picks than some like high schools, like high prestigious schools on here like Michigan. So pick number 32, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. To me, this is one of those things, like I said, with the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know what position they're going to take. I mean, pretty much no matter what they do, they can't screw up because they're still going to have an absolutely insane roster. The only way I see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers screwing up is if they take a quarterback here, which obviously didn't really make sense. I would not be a fan of that at all. I'm kind of thinking, maybe a defensive tackle or an edge rusher. Lots of those guys in the defensive line going up there in age. I think I know it's a little bit early. I kind of like Carlos Basham quite a bit from Wake Forest. I know Gregory Russo's there. I prefer Basham. Who are you thinking here for Tampa Bay at 32?
So you had Ndamukong Suh added back for one more year, which is probably going to be likely the last season he is with the Buccaneers. So I think if you're wanting to find a future defensive tackle for your team, you want to look towards possibly adding a 3-tech. And Basham could be one of those guys. I like Levi Onwuzurike from Washington as my favorite D-tackle currently available right now. I think he can really slot in next to Vita Vea and be a dominant pass rusher. Apart from him, I think he's in a very, very good position to win now. It might be the case where PFF is a little bit low on him, but I think a lot of people consider him to be a day one talent right now. He is a guy that I slot right now as like an early, late day one, early day two talent. I think he can really, really be a good day one pick here for the Buccaneers because he adds a lot of potential as a really good pass rusher apart from Vita Vea, like I said.
Yeah, it was 32 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think they can screw this pick up. I think the best case for the Denver Buccaneers is if they draft, preferably on the defensive side of the ball, excuse me. And that's what they do here. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that guy's name. I'm not good with announcing names. So they take the Washington defensive tackle here to end the round 1 mock draft from PFF. Overall, I thought this mock draft was pretty good. Who would you say was probably maybe the biggest steal of this mock draft in your opinion?
I think anytime you can get Caleb Farley in the 20s, you are celebrating as much as possible. And the Titans being able to get such a great cornerback at 22. Is such a steal. And I also really like Jalen Phillips at 27 as well, being able to get such a talented edge rusher to add to the Baltimore defense team. So I think Baltimore and the Titans, Tennessee Titans, are both big winners in this draft, if you ask me right now.
Yeah, I mean, both of those picks are really nice. I absolutely love that Christian Barmore pick to the Cleveland Browns. I mean, I know being a Bengals fan, that's going to absolutely suck. But, I mean, that's the Cleveland Browns, if they draft right, that's a potential, Super Bowl roster, in my opinion. I know it sounds crazy, but they're a lot better than people think. So overall, I thought my draft was good, really nice. I think, for the most part, there's some really nice picks overall. So that kind of does it for this episode. So, Blake, can you tell some of the listeners where they can follow you on social media?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at BlakeJude714, also on Instagram at StripePipeCincy. You can also probably follow my website, BengalsInsiders.com. Again, thank you so much for having me on. It was a blast of a podcast. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of time constraints today, but hopefully next time we don't have to have those issues. We can have another long podcast.
Yeah, really excited to have you on the show. Maybe we can do some more mock drafts as we get closer to the draft. So make sure to go follow, Blake's, Bengal page and his website that he mentioned. I'll put those links in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you next time on Sports 200.